JSE is this afternoon firmly in the green and trading at the highest levels since August of last year. It marks the third consecutive session of advances since Friday. Market sentiment continuing to be supported by hopes of interest rate cuts by the US Federal Reserve, which could lead to the easing of interest rates for us here in South Africa as well. Let's bring in Kagiso Matlala. He's the equity sales trader at Standard Bank. Kagiso, it's great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. A great run by the JSE so far this week. It is only Tuesday, but please give us an overview of what is driving market performance this afternoon.
Afternoon to you and the listeners. It's a pretty muted start. You're right, we are in the positive. We had some decent overnight sentiment coming out from the US, where the pivot and cuts seemed a little bit more likely. Asia this morning was also a little bit mixed, but both those have carried us through to this morning. We've seen Naspers and Prosus, the two busiest names. With the recent rally that we've seen in Asian tech, Tencent and the likes have climbed quite multiples, and that's followed through to Naspers. And this morning we kind of saw the first bit of profit taking in those two names. So those are two busy names. Away from that, SA Inc. continues to see a lot of buying. Couple of reasons for that. Some pre-positioning is going into elections, and a few other. And SA just been relatively cheap to a lot of EM. But away from that, then with the last thing, we've got the precious metal miners, which are holding us a little bit back. They were down about 3.1% just before I left the desk.
Yeah, and then miner Goldfield has released an operational update with mining issues at South Deep, the group South African mine. What does it say?
Yeah, so that's basically the fly in the soup in what I mentioned in the markets. They came out with a disappointing set of updates. There's a few headwinds in the sector, and that's what's dragged the rest of the gold miners with them. We saw costs are higher, production came lower at the lower end, which made it all a lot more alarming for the way that they kept guidance for the full year unchanged. But to make matters worse, they also downgraded production at Solaris. The one positive thing that did come out of the update was that Martin Prius will stay as CEO. Hopefully that will kind of lend a hand to improve things there.
Yeah, and the debt crunch obviously becoming a major concern in South Africa, particularly when we look at the latest Debt Busters index. What has it found in the latest report?
Indeed, not a pretty picture. SA, I think we're all quite aware of just how bad things are out there. What the debt counseling inquiry did find is that, there's about a 22% increase on the use of online debt management services, which is up about 30% compared to the same period last year. The group also came out with saying that about 62% of households are using net income to repay debt. So not a great picture for homes, which is entirely unsurprising given the macro background. The high inflation, high interest rates, and also just not enough growth and enough employment.
When we introduced our segment with you, we talked about the hopes insofar as decisions by the US Federal Reserve is concerned. How likely are those rate cuts for us? And if they are, when can we expect them?
Yeah, so we will obviously get a lot of guidance from when the US cuts. I think these have been pushed out quite several times, driven by labor and a strong market in the US. Whether we cut before the US cuts is doubtful. I think we will have to take guidance from them. So as the data weakens, and I think what you can look out for is as US labor market data weakens, that'll probably be the best indication of when we can start to expect cuts towards the end of the year.
Yeah, fair to say that all of us are waiting with bated breath. Shall we go to our neighbours? Zimbabwe's Finance Minister Mthuli Ncube saying that the country will convert its annual budget to its gold-backed currency. What does Zimbabwe have to do to build the trust around this new currency?
Yeah, Zimbabwe is also a tricky environment. Yes, you're right. He did say they're going to try convert the budget to the new ZiG. What I would like to say is that this is not the first currency move that we've seen out of Zimbabwe. I think we saw them issue the bond currency earlier a few years back. They've tried a few things, and I think changing the currency alone is not going to be the panacea. There's a lot more to be done in terms of the macro situation, in terms of human rights situation, or whatever else you can call in that environment. So I don't think it's the silver bullet that sorts it out. There is still a long road for Zimbabwe.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me thank you for your time. Kagiso Matlala, it's a pleasure talking to you this afternoon, an equity sales trader at Standard Bank.